overview of a plan for the next few years of your life, right?
Yes.
And you're going to basically, now the job is to like execute that plan, right?
Yeah.
Which is like the easy, I actually like to say that's the easy part. The hard part is figuring out what the best plan is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy in the sense that it takes like what I mean to say is, though, this gets into the theme, not all minutes of work are created equal. If you didn't have the information you have now, you could work your ass off, but you would be working in ineffective ways, right?
Yeah.
But now that you have this information, like the job is just go out and collect more information and go out and collect opportunities to get towards that space, right?
Yeah.
So the point of reading this book in those chapters prior to your application, like right as you're applying, is, or you could even do it after you apply. Like it doesn't, you could do it this, the point is that now it's on a Post-it note, right? So it doesn't really matter when you do it, but before you go into, so if you apply in December, they're going to get back to you in like March or April, probably. If you get a positive vote of confidence, and I'm going to say, you're going to hear something funny from me. I would not go for MIT. I wouldn't go for UC Berkeley. I wouldn't go for UCLA. I would go for a lesser, unless those schools have scholars that you specifically want to work with and you have a working relationship with them. Right? So if you know a teacher at that school or a professor at that school that has open PhD slots that you have a working relationship with and they are actively targeting you, that's a very different scenario. But if the only thing that you're going on is school recognition name and you're like, oh, MIT is really prestigious, let me try there. That's a recipe for being chewed alive. Be a big fish in a small pond and target institutions that are going to give you a lot of support. When you do your applications, if you get back from them, they will probably, depending on where you go and how much money they have, they will probably either fly you out or have you drive out for a school visit, a site visit.
Yeah.
At that time, I will recommend, you can come back to this video at that point, interviewing your professors. When you do those interviews, the information in chapters 7 through 17 is going to be highly relevant to you. If you don't have that information and you go into those interviews, you're going to be at a leg down and you will not ask what I would say are critical questions of them. Don't trip. I plan, if you will still have me, to be working with you at that time, right? So I promise you that we, at that point, when I'm a little balder and a little grayer, we can talk about that scenario again. But in terms of your own internal calendar system, I would put a little Post-it note there for you. Before you go into your graduate school selection process, having access to the information in chapters 7 through 17 is a super useful thing to do, because you can use that to generate questions and look for red flags.
Yeah. And then that's why I think one of the reasons I really want to get involved in undergraduate research as soon as I can is so that, well, it'll make me more competitive. I can at least build a relationship somewhat that's more intimate with some professors rather than just showing up to office hours, even though like I'm sure that will help. Although in Zoom, I don't know how that's gonna work as much. And also like because I mean, it's a big commitment. It's like 7 years commitment. Well, if I'm including the years before, that's what, 10 years. So I definitely want to see like, what is this process like of doing research? Like I want to get exposed to it before I make a commitment like that. So just being as informed as I can before I make a huge commitment like that. Yeah, so I'm glad I set out to put, like, even though it was only 80 pages, which like it doesn't feel like a lot, but I gained a lot from those, and like it cleared up. It just seemed like a whole mysterious thing. If anything, my only doubts are just like how, like it's just telling me to reach out to professors in other schools, and I'm like, wow, that's just, like it's hard enough to talk to a professor from my own university. Now imagine trying to bother a professor at a different university. But I'll get to it. Yeah. So that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think of the kindling process?
What?
What do you think of the kindling process? Or better, what did you do? How did you kindle?
So first first I just like, I mean, as I read the book, I would type side to side, but then I don't know how I felt about that. And then I read and wrote down things, which I feel like it stuck better for me. And then later on, I typed that information again. So I kind of went through it almost 3 times. So I feel like that really made it stick, but it took a lot longer. So I have to like that's why I barely finished my Kindling document maybe like 2, 3 days ago rather than like a week ago. But yeah, so that was my experience with Kindling. But, yeah.
Henry, I'd love to hear.
Just real quick, to address Steve's doubt on finding people at other institutions. See, when you get your first undergraduate research opportunity, professors are well connected with other professors at other institutions. So don't trip yourself over that hurdle, right? Because, for example, the research that I'm doing in the College of Ed with those 2 faculty right now, they're super connected with faculty from around the world. So you just gotta find your first one, right, at Davis.
That's why for me, like, instead of thinking big picture, like get the PhD, it's like, sorry, I'm gonna just start small. See if I can get some local undergrad experience working with professors. Hopefully, like, even if it's a great experience and it's a horrible professor, it doesn't like push me away. But
when you get closer to that, Steve, I don't know the young professors at Davis.
Right,
They've hired
Jeff,
a number of professors since I
I'm
left.
sure you integrate it.
So I won't have as
So
much
here's a question I have for
about
you.
them.
What does that tell you
But
about
a lot of the older ones, I
active
have
lecture?
working knowledge of their personalities
It's
and
not
their
efficient.
student-centeredness. And I'd be so happy
Well,
to
I
talk
know,
with you
like,
about that
oh,
as you
I was gonna say,
strategize to do those applications.
I think I'm
and also
more
think
proactive
about,
than a lot of
I would ask you a few
students, at
questions
least
about the
that I
type
know.
of math that you want to do, and I'd also
And
provide
so if
for
I
you
can do it and I'm having trouble engaging, then I'm gonna say
guidance about that
a
type of
lot
thing.
of students
I would
out there,
always
more
advise
than half,
focusing on
are
applied
struggling
math
to
for a few
engage.
different
So it's
reasons,
not really
but
an efficient system. So
I'd be happy to share that knowledge with you.
So the
as you
first
make-
thing that I
so
want
that
to
you
say
have
is,
the information so
we,
you can make a
last
decision
week
that you feel is
we
best for yourself.
highlighted that paper by,
and
I
I've
think
seen
guy
a
named
bunch
Scott
of like
Freeman.
conferences
That
of
paper actually
like professors talking about, and I've kind of just
justifies
I get a glimpse of what
scientifically as
professors are
possible.
like based on how
All
they
teaching
speak, and then
is
also a lot
subjective
of
anyways,
conferences
but
from
it does a
like I put it
metacognitive
on the Excel
analysis
sheet. There
of
was one
20,
like just
225 papers that basically
Latinos in
say
math.
lecturing
And there's one
is
professor, this
to
Mexican
learning health
professor,
what
he's from
cigarettes
Mexico,
are to physical health.
De Loera.
Like,
yeah,
it's a
Jesus
shitty
de Loera.
system,
Yeah, that guy was really cool.
right? And
Yeah, I really liked
another problem that
the
I
way he
haven't seen
was, and then
addressed
there was
in the research literature from the standpoint of like quantitative
she might be
statistical
Puerto Rican or
analysis
something, but she's in
to
biology,
justify that
math.
this is true, right?
But
The 4-year
yeah,
degree was
and they
created,
seem really
formally
self-centered.
speaking,
So I
like
was like, because I know Jeff, you're always like
1930s,
telling me like
1940s.
oh, some professors are assholes.
But we've
to
had
this,
like
this, and I was like,
80
okay, I need
years,
to be
90
aware of
years
that. But
of
then it's so
technological
weird for me to
development
see a
from that,
professor,
and we haven't
and
changed
he's
the
like,
structure of that degree. And so what ends up happening is,
but
it's the
hopefully,
5-pound bag
I
problem.
mean,
You're trying to
that's genuine.
fit 20 pounds of manure
So
into
yeah,
a 5-pound
excited
bag. Well,
to
guess
see
what?
what happens.
5 pounds can't
next year.
fit 20 pounds. It just doesn't happen, right? And, a lot of teachers will think just because they can talk fast, students are understanding. But the issue that you're noticing, Henry, is like learning doesn't happen on a schedule that's defined by the teacher prior to starting. Learning happens when you actually sit down to learn. And this is, I know you said something really relevant last time, but I do think it's worth mentioning. You said, I wanted to show myself and Osama and all the students that I could do this, and I wanted to get ready to grad school. And I get that. This is a joke. It's meant to make you laugh, but would you agree that getting hit in the face and being able to like survive it makes me tough? Okay. So then I could hit myself in the face really, really hard until I'm bleeding and show other people how tough I am, right? But if I already know what that's going to feel like, and I know that I can survive that, is that a necessary exercise for showing toughness? Like, in fact, maybe I would want to like reorient, especially if I know some of the dangers associated with that, right? Like a broken nose, bloody, And the same thing is true, like
I understand the idea, especially I understand it because I went through it. Like we want to prove to ourselves that we're capable, right?